Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be giving you a sample code structure when you're programming with Arduino. If you're a beginner, this should be especially helpful, and we're going to cover the three main parts that go into every code. So the first part, as you can see here, is the introduction. In the introduction, you can declare variables, you can define constants, and you can include libraries. Let me write this down. Include libraries, define constants, and also declare variables. Next up is the void setup. In the void setup, you can initialize variables, pin modes, incorporate libraries, or really do anything, and it's not too different from the introduction up here, but the main difference, as you can see, are these statements called pin modes, and I'm going to write this down because it's unique to this setup. So what pin modes do, they allow you to declare certain pins as inputs or outputs, and this is usually done within the void setup. The setup, as you can see, runs only one time, and it runs after each power-up or reset of the Arduino board. If you don't understand why that is, it's because everything declared in the void setup doesn't change. For example, you're not going to include if statements, no if statements, for example, or for loops in the void setup, because nothing should be changing and it should just be preparing to go into the void loop, where all those if statements, for loops, and everything will be executed. So after creating a setup function, a loop function, put simply, loops the code inside it consecutively. So loops code consecutively. What does this mean? Well, it means that all the code inside this program here will loop forever until basically the board is unplugged or power is gone. And what this allows it to do, it allows the result of the circuit to change based on the truth of certain conditions. And that introduces the next important thing about loops, which is that loops can have other loops inside of them. So can have other loops, functions, and statements inside of them. So let's take a look at one of my example programs. While it may seem initially complicated, it's actually very simple. I haven't even included libraries here in the top, and I haven't even defined constants. All I've done is define some variables and also clarified the name for a pin because I didn't want to remember pin 2 the whole time. Next up in the void setup, let me label this as setup. You can see that I've executed those pin mode statements and functions so that I declare this and that the circuit knows that pin 1 is an output, for example, that pin 2 is an input and that pin 0 is an output. I've also added a comment here in the setup so I know what these are later on and if I ever want to go back and revisit the program. After declaring the setup, again, it leads into the void loop. In the void loop, I have some if statements, and as a result of those if statements, I also have some other functions that occur. So this is an example of how basically, based on the truth of this statement, the program can change. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I highly suggest watching the next video in order to expand on your knowledge and learn about some syntax to use in your programs.